Thank you very much. All right. Sonic Reality and Virtual Worlds. Notice I changed the title a little bit. I just thought it would sound neater. Yay. So how many people here, it's weird holding a microphone. I'm not used to holding a microphone. I'm used to being the guy in the back turning the knobs and stuff like that. How many people here have seen a movie? All of you have seen a movie? That's something we share. How many people have seen a movie with surround sound? Speakers all around you. Very nice, very nice. If I were to say how many speakers would you need to be able to make it seem like a sound was coming from anywhere? So a 360-degree sphere is around you. How many speakers would you need? You said something? One speaker? Gotcha. So those speakers have multiple drivers inside them. So in other words, it has lots and lots of speakers. Some of them shoot sound up into the ceiling, and then it comes down and hits you on the couch, and then shoots it sideways and hits the wall and comes and hits you. So two. Why two? Okay. Cool. I keep messing this up. This is supposed to happen when I'm asking you the question. So two speakers. Let's start out with two speakers. So with two speakers, this is just traditional stereo stuff. You have two speakers in front of you. That's our listener. It looks kind of like an alien. I apologize for that. When you're drawing in PowerPoint, they only give you certain shapes to work with. And I made him purple because, in honor of Thanos, obviously he's going to be purple. Thank you. Cool, so two speakers. So with two speakers, you're going to be able to obviously make something sound like it's coming from your right or your left. When you play something out of both speakers at the same volume and at the same time, then you are able to create the perception of something happening as though it's coming from a third speaker in the middle. That's called a phantom center. And based on changing the volume level between those speakers, you can make that phantom center move from one speaker to the other speaker. But the problem is you can never make it get behind you. You can never make a person perceive that something is coming from behind them. So in the past, they've added two more speakers behind them. This is called quadraphonic. I'm not sure if anyone here knows what that is, but Pink Floyd released several albums in quadraphonic, and really it's just four speakers, based on the principle that that's all you're going to need in order to cover this plane. Nothing vertical, nothing above us or below us, but it will at least get us from left to right and behind us. But if you're doing a movie with quadraphonic, the problem may be that whoa, that's not the laser. There's the laser. So you're here in the sweet spot, but if your friend here is sitting next to you, they're going to perceive that the sound is coming from here instead of from the phantom center. So they're going to get a skewed view of where the sound is supposed to be coming from. And so film people have added a center speaker, and that's where they put all their dialogue so that the dialogue is anchored to the screen. So that no matter where you are in the theater, the dialogue at least comes from the right place. The sound effects may not come from the right place, but at least the dialogue is anchored to the right place. Later on, they added another speaker down there. We've got 6.1 now, 7.1, 9.12. Lately, we've got things like Dolby Atmos and DTSX and Oro 3D. Anyone familiar with those formats? Not so much. They're still pretty new. As far as today's conversation goes, we're just worried about the speakers that they added to the top of the theater. So they've added a height channel in all of those formats. So now we've got from left all the way to right, we've got behind us, and we've got above us. We still don't have below us. And we've got, what, 10 speakers now. Sometimes 11, depending on the setup that you have in Atmos, sometimes 40. But we still haven't got 360 degrees making a sound come from anywhere. How about that? Would that do it? I think potentially. This is a 91 channel research array. So it's in a really, really, really quiet room called an anechoic chamber. And it's used for different research. We'll talk about what type of research they do in here later. There are some impracticalities with this setup, obviously. You can't have too many friends watch a movie with you in a space like that. It's also restrictively expensive to build one of these things. That's a lot of speakers. Can I have a volunteer? Yeah, come on up. So just stand right here. I would like you to close your eyes and just turn your head and your body to wherever you're hearing snapping sounds. Let me get my snapper ready. Okay. Cool.
Am I allowed to move my feet?
Absolutely.
Oh, okay.
Cool. Okay. Nice. Thank you very much. You're Rachel, right?
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Rachel. So, would you say that she was able to figure out where the sound was coming from, no matter where I was, really? Yeah. And pretty accurately, too. As humans, it's not very helpful for us to inaccurately locate where a sound is coming from. If there's a lion growling inside a bush somewhere, we don't want to look up to try to find the lion. All those people that did that have already died, and Darwin has come through for us. And we can we can now pretty accurately locate sound. Oh, hey. In space. Come on. There we go. So how many ears does she have? There we go. She has 2 ears. Indeed. So how many speakers do you think we need to make sound come from any direction? Just 2. That is all. We don't need 91 speakers to make a human perceive sound from any direction. We just need 2. Now the way we can do that is we spatialize them. So that's what she was doing up there. She was localizing sound in physical space. Her body was telling her that that sound was coming from that direction, and so she turned her body that direction very accurately. The question is, how in the world do humans do that? And can we do it in the virtual world as well? So to the first question, the way that humans spatialize things is based on 3 different bits of input that our body receive. And the first one is a difference in timing between the ears. Second one is a difference in volume. And the third one is a difference in frequency characteristics. Are you guys all familiar with what frequency is? So if I say high frequency, what does that mean to you guys? Higher pitch, like Michael Jackson versus Barry White. So Michael Jackson would be high frequencies, Barry White would be down low frequencies. Okay, that's all we need to understand as far as this conversation is concerned.
Sorry, can I ask a question?
Yes, please.
You said that difference in frequencies, is that also between ear to ear?
Yeah, so difference in frequency characteristics. So the specific content of the frequencies of the entire sound as it hits this ear and the differences in those. So And we'll go over each one. So if we have one speaker in the center shooting sound at us, it will hit, the sound from that speaker will hit both of our ears at exactly the same time, and we will perceive it as coming from directly in front of us. Not only will it hit our ears at the same time, but it will also hit our ears at the same volume. And there's nothing that happens with the frequency characteristics of it between the ears, so obviously it's coming from directly in front of us. Pretty much like the phantom center, essentially. If it's on our left-hand side, on the other hand, the sound is going to hit that ear first. And not only is it going to hit that ear first, but it's also going to hit that ear at a infinitesimally small, higher volume than the other ear. So, hits that one first. Oh, I have a laser. There we go. Hits that one first, and then this one. Hits this one louder, and then this one. And then as far as the frequency content goes, the way that high frequencies work in opposition to lower frequencies is higher frequencies are more directional. In other words, if they hit something, it's probably going to stop the higher frequencies. So let me take the microwave for just 1 second. So if I talk to you like this, and then I go back behind the screen like this, you should be able to still hear my voice, but it's going to sound a little bit different than when I'm talking up here. So the thing that's different is likely, I don't know, I've never heard it from you guys' point of view when I do that demonstration. But the difference is going to be that the high frequencies have bounced off this screen, or if it were an absorbative surface, it would be absorbed by that thing. The low frequencies, on the other hand, will either vibrate this thing so it turns it into another speaker, essentially, or a membrane, or it wraps around that thing. So low frequencies wrap around, high frequencies are stopped, so effectively it creates a shadow where high frequencies can't exist, right where that ear is expecting to hear higher frequencies. So based on that, your brain says, oh, I guess it's over on my left-hand side. So to tell you, oh yeah, there we go. Frequency, we already did that. So to tell you how cool your brain is, let's talk about the smallness of the differences between these things. So a difference in timing, just to give you some context, a blink of an eye takes 100 to 400 milliseconds. A millisecond is 1/1000th of a second. So that's like 1/10 of a second to almost 1/2 of a second to blink. The time it takes for sound to get from one ear to the other ear is about 0.58 milliseconds. That's nothing, absolutely nothing. So it's about 200 times smaller than the blink of an eye. Differences in volume. I never know how much people know before I start talking to people, so we'll get everyone caught up. So volume is measured in decibels, if you did not know. A quiet room like this one, if we were all to be really, really quiet right now, would be right around 40 to 60 dB, depending on the level of the AC at the time. Probably about 50, is my guess. So the difference in volume over the distance between the ears. So in other words, as it hits this ear, it's going to be a little bit quieter over here. That volume difference is going to be less than 1 decibel. And the difference between 1 dB and 50 dB, in other words, the difference between 1 dB and this quiet room is going to be a power difference of 1 to 100,000. And our ears are able to hear between 1 and probably 130, so that's upwards of several trillion difference I just think that's cool. So this thing is an amazing tool that we have. Notice the shape of it. That is the important part. That is what gives us the perception of where things are coming from in space, is the shape of our ear. And we've been able to harness that shape to capture recordings that trick our brains into thinking that something is behind us, or in front of us, or below us, or right, left, up, down, any direction. And we've created microphones like this. This is a microphone made by 3DO. Not 3DO, the game system, different company. But notice that. What in the world is this microphone shaped like? It's an ear. So the microphone is actually inside the ear canal, where our eardrum would be. Our eardrum is essentially just a microphone, or at least the diaphragm of a microphone. We can talk about cochlea and little hairs and everything later if you want to, but that's all you really need in order to capture a recording that we perceive as having something come from behind us or above us or any direction, is just a microphone shaped like an ear. In fact, all you really need is a microphone inside your own ear. You don't need one of these expensive things. Just stick a puny little microphone inside your ear, and you can capture what we call this is binaural recordings. This is another one. This is made by Neumann. This is an $8,000 microphone. Does essentially the same thing. Any guesses why they put the head on it? Right, so the time it takes for the frequency to wrap around it is important to spatialization as well. So the 3DO one works pretty well, but this one will absolutely work better because of the head. Both of them, notice, that section is made of rubber. Now that rubber is a similar density to our ear, so that it absorbs and reflects and lets through frequencies in a similar manner to our ears, which is kind of cool. So if you're trying to do a video game and trying to recreate this in a virtual world, we don't have the benefit of having rubber ears on a stick in a virtual world. We have to do it a little bit differently. And the way we do it in the virtual world is using something called an HRTF. An HRTF stands for Head-Related Transfer Function. In other words, so if you imagine this first section as the original signal, whatever that signal might be, in this case it's speech. So that speech gets manipulated by the surroundings. So it'll bounce off walls, it'll bounce off body parts, it'll hit the ear in certain ways and go into our eardrum, but only after being filtered through the space that it's moving through. So this is what it looks like after it's been filtered. And so what we try to do with HRTFs is create a mathematical function that recreates that recreates the filter and helps us to spatialize things in a virtual world rather than just the real world. Some games have done this pretty well. There's a couple audio-only games that I don't think you can buy anymore, but I thought they were amazing. So they don't have any visual cues, and you navigate, it's a phone game, so you navigate based only on what you can hear. So when you hear something over here, you turn your body, and then they've got little footsteps that you go foot, 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 foot. So you can move around in a three-dimensional environment that you can't see. One of those games is called Papa Sangre 2. Another one is Audio Defense Zombie Arena. In that one, you can hear a zombie behind you up here, and then you turn your body, and then you fire at the zombie, and you can hear accurately enough that you can hit the zombie using just your ears. It's pretty cool. Yeah. So let's go back to this. This is where we get our HRTFs. It seems like a stupid thing to do, but this is where HRTFs come from, is they put a person in the middle of that room, they put a microphone in their ear, and they play a sound, and they know what that sound is, so they can compare it to the recorded sound later on. And since they know the angles and positions of all of these things in space, they can compare that to the original signal and create an HRTF based on the sound, how the ear treats those sounds. And once we plug that into a video game engine, we can make sound react in almost the same way as it does in real life. So if you're doing a horror game and you want something to be sneaking up behind someone, you can do that in VR. If you want anything to come from anywhere, you can do that in VR using these tools and just 2 speakers. Cool. Questions? So as far as binaural, oh yeah. So he was wondering, if you're recording something in binaural, how do you translate head movements into a 360 video situation? And with binaural, you can't. Binaural, when you record it live on the set, is going to be headlocked. So it will always be from the camera point of view, and even if you turn your head, the binaural recording is going to be locked to your head, not the environment. There's another type of microphone called an ambisonic microphone. It has 4 capsules on it. I'm not sure how big of audio nerds we have in here, but if you're familiar with a mid-side mic setup, anyone? Wow, even my audio nerds don't know anything about that. So a mid-side setup is using 2 microphones. One captures things in 2 directions. One captures something in 1 direction. And so you use the 1 direction as a difference channel, and then the 2 directions as the original signal. So when you compare those together, without getting too technical, you can tell whether something was left or right. With ambisonic, you have 4 capsules. 1 of them is the difference channel, and 3 of them are the directional going in each axis, X, Y, and Z. And so you should be able to extrapolate what direction something is coming from when you decode it on the other end of things. So if you have an ambisonic microphone attached to your 360 video camera, you will be able to have head tracking, head movements go along with your 360 video, which is cool. And there's also tools, Facebook has some free tools. I think it's the 360 workspace that you can put into Pro Tools and mix all your stuff, and you can pan anything in that 360-degree environment, and it spits it out as an ambisonic file. It's called B format. I think it does FUMA, a couple of other formats as well. Does that help?
Yeah, at which point?
Right, exactly. So you've got your 4 channels from that, and from that, the software is able to bounce that down into 2 channels of binaural audio. Rather than recording binaural on the set, you'd probably do it ambisonic or just mono, and then bring it into Pro Tools or your favorite DAW, and pan it using those 360 tools to make it happen. Cool. Other questions? Yeah. Decently important for doing space. For spatializing something, it probably distracts you a little bit. It's harder to spatialize something in a reverberant environment, but as for getting a sense of the space that you are in, early reflections are really, really important. I saw a presentation by the guys that did Overwatch, and they created a special tool. It was just a delay, really. They didn't want, reverbs usually take up a whole lot of processing power, especially good ones like convolution reverbs. So they wanted the sense of a space, but they didn't want it to take up very much processing power. And so what they did was they just did a raycast in 4 directions. I think they did diagonal away from the character. And they would measure the distance between the character and the nearest object. And then they would delay the sound, whether it's the gun sound or the footsteps or whatever is coming from the character, by that much time based on the speed of sound. And all they needed were those 4 things, and it was really effective and not very CPU heavy.
Have you heard of a plugin with a plugin called Wise?
Wise is middleware, not really a plugin.
I know they have an integration for Unity that
They
does
do.
resolution and reflection stuff. I just
Indeed. I am a Wise certified instructor. No, it's an awesome tool. Absolutely. Cool. Other questions? Yeah, go ahead. Absolutely. So just so the camera knows, she said sound was the most important, and I agree. A lot of people that do VR nowadays are only worried about the visuals side of things. They're not worried about the sound side of things. But again, if you're doing a horror game, you can't do it without good sound. You can't do it properly. You're shooting yourself in the foot a little bit. There's a video that I show my students sometimes that has, they did the same short film, one with an iPhone that had good sound, and one, in other words, they had an iPhone and then they had a proper boom mic and proper audio setup. And then they used a Red Dragon for the other one with just the on-camera microphone. And so I watch it with my students, and after they watch both of them, I ask them which one had better picture, and they always choose the one with better sound, which I always thought was interesting. If you want to make your good film seem amateurish really quickly, give it bad sound. That's all, yeah. Any other questions? Yeah.
So thinking about more interactive where you can't control everything,
So as far as spatial audio goes, and by spatial audio I mean stuff that makes you think that it's coming from all over the place through headphones, I think it's almost more difficult to do spatial audio in the linear format because you have to tell the linear format exactly where you want that object to be placed in space at any given moment. Whereas in a video game engine, all you have to do is attach a sound to an object, and the object moves, and so does your sound. So you don't have to do all your panning and level adjustments. It's all done by the engine, which is nice. As far as a linear environment, it makes it a little bit more difficult, at least time-consuming. Does that answer your question?
yeah, I'm just curious your thoughts on it. But
Yeah.
I've also used Wise. I think it's a great tool.
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah. And Fmod, I should mention as well, is an awesome middleware tool. Both of them are free to use for indie projects. I think Fmod is free budget-wise, so if your budget is less than like $100,000, then you get to use it for free on your project. And Wise is asset-based, so if you have less than 500 assets, audio assets, then you can use that for free on your project, which is cool. You had one?
Well, it was kind of related. This one's better than this. And
Yeah. So she asked about hardware and software tools for VR and both linear and interactive. As far as hardware tools, we'll start there. I haven't had much use for capturing things in binaural, straight up, so those fancy ear microphones haven't really had much use for. I can see how they can, if you're doing like a music recording or something that, so if the picture is locked and you can't move your head around, It might add some extra juice to your envelopment of the audience, but I haven't really seen much use for that in real world. Ambisonic microphones that we talked about earlier that can capture things from the camera perspective, they're nice too, but with the software tools, they're less useful. So if you remember when we talked about the iPhone video versus the Red Dragon video, the Red Dragon had its microphone attached to the camera from the camera perspective, and it had horrible sound. The only good place for an ambisonic microphone is from the camera perspective, because you want that perspective to be the same when you turn your head in the final product as it was on the day. So you can capture decent ambiances, I guess, and it may be a good place to start, but I would still get mono recordings of everything that you want recorded on the set on the day, as far as hardware is concerned. And the software tools, we mentioned Facebook 360 tools. That's a free one. Google has some free tools as well. There's ones that you pay for. Dolby makes one that comes with their Atmos production suite. So if you want to produce something in Atmos, and this is a good time to mention why Atmos is different than something like just a 5.1 or a 7.1. Atmos and DTSX and Oro 3D are all object-based mixing environments. In other words, you have a virtual room, and you place things in that virtual room. So since it's that way, you can put it in a stereo system with just 2 channels, and it will decode it into stereo. You can have 7.1, and it'll decode it into 7.1. You can have 7.1.4 with 4 overhead channels. It'll decode it into that. And it's really, really versatile because it's object-based rather than channel-based. In the past, you would mix everything into 6 different channels, and it would always be those 6 channels. And if you wanted to upmix it, you'd have to add more content to put in those extra channels to make that happen. But in this case, it decodes it on the fly to any of those formats, which is awesome. So Dolby has a VR thing that goes along with this, its Atmos stuff. So not only can you mix it for Atmos, but you can simultaneously mix it for VR as well, which is cool. What else? Audio Ease has an ambisonic panner as well that converts it into binaural. It used to be that there was only 1 or 2 tools, but now there's so many, and half of them are free. So go get them. There's a ton. Other questions? Boy, that is a sensitive cable. Yeah. Indeed. Absolutely, I do. Yes. Awesome. He does that. He likes to say that he recorded the neon trees before the neon trees were famous, so. Cool. Other questions? Cool. Thank you guys so much.